A great many months have passed now since everything fell apart. That fateful day, so long ago when all of a sudden, slowly, the power went out. We lost the internet. No 911, no courts. Many of us were prepared though. Food was never really much of an issue in those early days. Water became more of an issue, primarily because people didn't realize how much of it they needed. You can go a few days without food, but water's a daily thing. I think now the biggest thing that we miss is people getting together in groups to talk about things. They did for a while, but it started to cause problems because there was no one around to enforce social contracts. There were covenant breakers everywhere. Oh, they would hold to their word for a while, and people would work together for a certain time until it became inconvenient or until they found an excuse to get out of it. And then they would just disappear. People don't eat in groups anymore because basically it causes too many issues, too many rumors. So we're all still by ourselves, just like we were before, but just a lot more miserable. That's truly what I think is coming. That until society reestablishes itself, there will be ever decreasing sizes of groups to the point where maybe even 2 or 3 might be a lot. Now, why do I say this? Over at Patreon, we put up a brand new video earlier today, and it deals with something that on this platform you can't even reference in passing without getting taken down or demonetized. It's a very sensitive subject. It affects everyone worldwide. And it's tied to something else that we've been talking about tangentially. Now, I know this is comedy. This is from the series Orville, where this guy catches his wife in bed with this alien guy. But let me ask a question. Is it legal to create a contract that prohibits somebody from taking affirmative action over their own body? Can you legally do that? Can you legally prevent somebody from making a personal choice with their own body? Even in a civil court, is that constitutional? You see, this is where things are going to get really murky, and probably sooner rather than later. The difference between biblical canon, biblical marriage, and secular marriage and civil unions. See, technically speaking, in civil civil unions, there cannot possibly be adultery. Why? Because you would have to have written into the contract that you control that other person's body. You can't necessarily control what they positively do, but you also can't control what they can't do under the auspice of or under the threat of financial sanction. You can't tell somebody in legal terms, you may not have relations with that other person. That's a violation of their constitutional rights. Now, I'm sure somebody's saying, but Florida Maquis, they entered into the contract willingly. If it violates a constitutional right, it's not legal. This has already been brought up. Now, this is Great Britain, but it's coming. You mark my word. Even the Patriot Nurse said this in her last video. She said, watch Europe. What happens in Europe? It's coming here. Should your prenup, meaning prenuptial agreement, include a sex contract, which is entirely illegal in the United States? Would you ever sign a sex contract? A British woman pondering this question recently wrote for advice. Her boyfriend refuses to marry her unless she agrees to have relations with him at least twice a week. He'd like to put the agreement in writing. But then she said, wait a minute, is this legal? Now here, it says doing so, it's not illegal in Great Britain However, it's unlikely that it could be enforced. I agree. You see, there the rules are different than here. Because the prenup that includes sex is in fact a sex contract. But so is one that prohibits you from the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You cannot sign a contract controlling another person's body. You can't even do that for yourself. It's called prostitution. You can't enter into a contract for body-provided services. Now, I know a lot of people think this is a technicality, but think of it in this term. In American marriage, North American, U.S. marriage, could you have a hall pass provision, meaning that for every year or 2 years that you're faithful, you get a hall pass for 1 week off from all other terms of the marriage? Now, many people are out there saying, I agree, it's messed up, Mucky. I have a biblical marriage. Okay, but wait a minute. Wait a minute. Did you actually read what it says in the Bible? Because a biblical marriage would be illegal. Because it says both the man and the woman, their body is not their own. It's literally contracting your body away to another person. Chapter 4, and this is the only place, by the way, 1 Corinthians 7, verse 4, pardon me. The wife hath not power of her own body, but the husband, and likewise also the husband hath not power of his own body, but the wife. That would be illegal. That would be entirely illegal. You could not exchange such a vow. We talk about this in more depth and more detail at Patreon. If you'd like to join us over there, $1 per month, even less if you sign up for an entire year. Believe me, it's a video you're going to want to see, because there are things out there that we would call biblical marriage, or the Bible would have called marriage, that we're not. Faithfulness is just not sleeping with anyone else, but it's actually doing something. It's doing what you do and doing it reliably every single day. That's the definition of faithfulness. Here's a story about a couple. Ready for this? Married for 16 years, never having had consummation. See, technically, this wouldn't even be recognized in the church. The church would require at least one event of consummation. See, somebody's going to challenge this at some point, because they've already done this now with the gay community wanting civil unions and justice of the peace marriages for anybody. But you cannot contract for that activity or to keep somebody from engaging in that activity other than with yourself. Imagine this in any other context, especially the women in my audience. The idea that, where's that other, I wish I would have brought it up. This is actually from India. It doesn't really apply to North America. They ruled just in 2021, marriage is not consent, marriage is a social contract. There was another article I read where a woman had entered into a marriage. Let's see here, hold on. Where it was a somewhat open marriage, where he was allowed to go fool around when he was on the road, but she couldn't without his specific permission. It sounds ridiculous, but when it's just civil litigation and it's just a contract, meaning only the state's involved, you don't have any biblical room to maneuver there. You can't moralize about it if it's secular. You can have an opinion on it, sure, but you can't enforce that opinion, is the point that I'm trying to make. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with unalienable rights. I mean, you can't contract them away. You can't sell yourself, for example, into indentured servitude. Pardon me. Let's get away from the sex thing for a minute. You can't sell yourself into indentured servitude to pay a debt. You can't make yourself someone's slave to, do work around the house or work on a farm. That's illegal as well. It's a form of this. It's a form of prostitution. And many have gone to prison for it. You mark my words, somebody's going to put this together. Somebody's going to put these things together because I keep getting this pushback about this whole scenario, grid down, power down scenario. Who is going to enforce it? Is there going to be some social way that marriages are held together? I mean, without your rings and without your little license, your little thing in the pictures of your marriage, of your wedding, what are you going to have? It's going to all be circumstantial and nothing will be able to be done. People get tossed out on their air of their homes. Who are you going to call? See, I've tried to make it nice where these two are having a conversation about how they're going to handle the money problems. I can think of 1,000 other ways it could go way worse. Way worse. And if you want to join us over at Patreon, this is the newest video. U.S. secular law now coming face to face with religious intolerance. Eventually the concept of marriage will be done away with completely. Therefore, no such thing, you ready for this? No such thing as adultery. And by Jewish law, by Jewish law, no such thing as fornication. Because in Jewish law, fornication is a married man sleeping with somebody he's not married to. So imagine being able to control somebody like that. It's a really great psychological case study. When you can divorce yourself, pardon the pun there, from emotion on it. Just think about two random people. Other people, not you, not your spouse. And think about all of the cases where you could say, well, this could be seen as faithfulness or this could be seen as unfaithfulness. But how could the control be enforced if the only thing that makes the marriage is the sexual fidelity? I mean, he didn't walk in on them having a drink. He didn't walk in on them playing cards or any other activity. It was only this specific activity that would violate the contract. Biblically speaking, you could, in a secular contract, in a secular marriage contract, you could write in anything you want. You could say this is okay and that's not okay, or here's your hall pass, or, for the holidays, we're going to call mulligans for whatever happens because everybody's drinking and eating and all this kind of stuff. You can make whatever rules you want. Secular marriage can. But if you're talking about biblical marriage, the rules that are spoken of in the Bible are illegal. So which takes precedent? It is illegal to say that your body is not your own under contract. Let me say that again. It is illegal for you to say that your body is now the possession of another person under contract. That is illegal. It's indentured servitude, it's prostitution, it's a form of slavery, whatever you want to call it. That person has a direct control over what you can and cannot do with your body. And if you violate that, they can punish you by divorce and taking financial compensation. A lot of people, I guarantee, out there are reading up on marriage. Right now, they're Googling it. And they're not bothering to Google the difference between what Christians call marriage and what the U.S. calls marriage. Because for so long, so many people thought they were synonymous, and they're not. They're entirely different. So I'll leave it there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.